beste tid I prologen. Jentene, de frykter nok ingen, I hvert fall ikke fra de her, men de skal nå ut og gå nå klokken 12. I første heat så det allerede der 3 norske, en finsk, en amerikansk jente og en svensk. Krista Parmakowski, Karin Gjerdes, Hanna Falk, Rønning Haga, Uno Krapotsen og Ida Sargent. Det blir et knallsterkt heat, og så kjøres...
Well, a very good morning and welcome to Lillehammer. The Nordic cross-country season just getting underway. Nice to see the promotions a little better than they were last weekend. We were up in Ruka, north of Finland, for the initial phase of the World Cup, and unusually getting underway with a sprint. And good news for the Swedes. Stina Nilsson showing herself to be on tremendous form, coming away with a win, getting a win over Falla, who was the dominant skier sprinter last year. So Nilsson takes the first win of the season. That put her into the yellow bib and looked very convincing indeed. Good tactics from her. Age of 23, turned pro some 4 years ago. There you see her stats, 5 World Cup wins now, but she could be a main player. I think we're going to see her feature in the sprint mostly, Mike, and then we'll see what happens in terms of the overall.
And good to see Stina Nilsson getting in the mix there, shaking up the Norwegian dominance, and she'll feel good again about today.
Well, the Women's 10K Classic, a familiar story. Back from a season off, Marit Bjørgen, now a mother, and still just as good as she was when she left. Bear in mind, it's not been that long since she gave birth. This was a stunning performance. The margin only 4.6 seconds in the end, but maybe had Bjørgen started later, we would have seen something special.
I'm looking forward to this, and yeah, I had some trouble this summer, but in the last months has been very good for me, so I had a good feeling. So I thought I could be on the podium, but to win today is incredible, and yeah, very fun.
Over 100 World Cup wins when you take into account the stage wins from World Cup. 36 years old now, and there you see it, 104 wins, 167 podiums. The percentages are quite staggering when you think she's only done 275 races. She is still the queen. Now, the men obviously in action in Ruka as well. Mike, the sprint event, a classic sprint, nearly always dominated by the Norwegians, and it was Norwegian colours to cross the line first, but they didn't have it all their own way.
They didn't. The young Klæbo, we thought he'd dominated each of the qualifying, the heats, and just running out of steam in the final competition itself.
Yeah, Klæbo's an exciting prospect for the Norwegians. Halvorsen looked very good for Sweden. He's wearing bib number 9. Halvorsen coming across the line in second place. It was Paul Goldberg who got his first classic style win, so a big moment for him. And the 26-year-old, certainly a man to watch out throughout the season. But really, the 15K Classic gave us a better idea of who's likely to be a contender for the overall this year.
I think it does, and Paul Goldberg, so good in the final straight. We've seen him in the past winning at Ruka, the first World Cup.
Well, it was a great day for Niskanen. He started relatively early compared to some of the big names, so really he was the pace setter, and he took Pellegrino and Jauhajevi apart. It was a stunning performance from him. He started fast, he steadied in the middle section, but his last 2 kilometres were devastating. Good enough to hold off the Norwegians coming through to challenge him. So Niskanen getting his first World Cup win of this season, taking his tally up to 2. Keep an eye on him this weekend. Welcome back to Lillehammer. Here is the course, second sprint of the season, and it starts with a pretty brutal climb out of the stadium, and then a second climb comes just before the 750 mark, and then a long, long downhill into the finish with a flat finish as well. So really, you've got to be in a strong position come the top of the second climb. The men's course, slightly different, an extra little climb coming in, and 1.6 kilometres the distance for them. We will see how they get on. Mike, with 3 climbs, do you take the second one steady, or do you think you go for a sprint on each and every one, like an interval?
I think to keep safety, we have seen strategies on this track before where it's good to go out strong, it's good to hold your line, because this track is much more tactical than last weekend in Ruka. And yeah, 300 metres difference between the women's sprint course and the men in terms of distance, and as you mentioned, that severe climb.
I think that's a very sensible move. The women's 1600 metres is not a sprint, and that's why we normally see the endurance athletes winning it. I actually would support coming down to 1,000, 1,100, and then we would start to see new names winning the sprints consistently, rather than seeing the good endurance athletes coming through and showing their strength.
Yeah, I got 1 kilometre, I think, for the women. This is the selection based on your qualifying time. And it's interesting how they keep looking at the screens to see who their opponents are in each of the 5 groupings.
Predominantly blue skies over Lillehammer, the Olympic venue way back in 1994. These aren't actually the tracks they used for the Olympics, but we're not far away. It is a stunning area to go skiing. There are just thousands and thousands of kilometres of tracks, and generally all prepared whenever it snows. So it's a good venue to come for the second weekend of the year. This, the 3rd individual race of the season. Sweden will be hoping for more success, having won the first women's sprint of the year. The Norwegians expecting things. They've got 10 of their athletes into the top 30 of this sprint. So if Norway don't win, it will be a big surprise. Which one's going to do it? Marit Bjørgen's made it through to the KO phases. Interested to see that Bjørgen's chosen a later group, Mike. Many would have thought someone of her strength would be confident to go in Group 1, which is now underway. Parmakovsky, Geitnes, Falk, Haga, Jakobsen, Sargent.
Is the selection of the grouping interesting, Patrick? And with 10 Norwegians, I think you alluded to earlier, maybe just creating the spread of Norwegian in each of the 5 separate groupings. 3 Norwegians in the first, 2 in the second, 2 in the third, 1 in the fourth, and 2 in the 5th.
I've heard the women's sprint, actually all sprints, described as a series of 3 sprints. A sprint off the start to get position, a sprint midway to make sure you don't get left behind, and then obviously the sprint to the line to gain your position. What the stronger athletes want to try and do is to complete the first round, certainly with minimal effort. There's absolutely no point winning by 40-50 metres. They want to cross that line in the first 2 with minimal effort, secure a place in the first semi-final, not the second one, and then they're laughing.
Very much so. Look at this course though. Look, we're on 1 minute now, and it's been absolute sprint from the gun. Very little recovery compared to last week in Ruka, where there was a fast descent, a 25-second recovery. It's all work even now, 1 minute 15 later. No glide time, but there will be a glide recovery coming up soon. Geitnes brought back into the team from winning her sprint competition last week in the Norwegian FIS race, and she won that. She's in good form. Here's the first of the recoveries, 1 minute 30 into the race coming up.
Parmakovsky's done a little bit of the donkey work early on in this race. Norway, USA, Sweden, Finland, all represented in this first of the quarterfinals, as they call them. But as I'm sure you'll know by now, 5 heats with 6 athletes in each, so 30, the 30 fastest from qualifying, making it through to the knockout phases. Hanna Falk of Sweden starting to make a move. She was the 4th fastest in qualifying in Ruka last weekend, so she's on good form. Finished 9th overall in the sprint, got knocked out in the semi-finals, and because of her qualifying time, was given 9th place overall. She leads, so it's Falk in a good, strong position at the moment. Number 6, that's Kari Geitnes in the Is that the B team colours, or are those her club colours?
Well, that's it. She hasn't been involved in the national team group much this summer, so yes, the B team suit, but what a performance she's having right now. She really has set her stall out throughout the whole sprint, 2 minutes 45 in.
Yeah, and what an opportunity for her. If she can make it through to the semi-finals, it's going to be tough to finish top Norwegian, but she's making a point here. But is she extending too much energy? She hasn't secured that qualifying place quite yet. Number 4, Krista Parmakoski of Finland, starts to make a move on the outside, and that's a really good, strong finish from Parmakoski. Hannah Falk trying to go with her. It's really between Heitnes and Falk for the second qualifying place. The time could be good. Keep an eye on that. We won't have any idea until we see the end of the second heat, although qualifying time's around 3:20, so it is 5 seconds quicker than qualifying. Parmakoski, Falk are in the automatic qualifying positions. Heitnes just raced out of it, and I wonder whether she made the mistake of leading too early.
Well, I felt certainly on the final descent, that's where she lost all her speed. Coming into this left-hander into the stadium, they caught up so much time on that descent. Tactically, Heitnes maybe just getting it a little wrong.
So on this sort of course where you have a long downhill into a flat finish, you do not want to lead into the downhill. You'll just get swallowed up. We've seen it time and time again.
It's a risky business though, isn't it? You want to be there or thereabouts.
The slipstream is worth at least 5 metres. Well, here's the replay. This is where Heitnes really made her move. Good climbing ability. She's not knocked out quite yet. She'll have to wait and see. But as you can see there, Heitnes on the near side in the purple top in 3rd position. So Parmakoski is through, and Parmakoski finishing 5th last weekend in the sprint in Ruka. So she's continued her drive towards the top end of the sprint rankings.
That was some 5 seconds faster than the fastest qualifying time, what, an hour and a half ago?
I think we need to keep an eye on Parmakoski. She only made 2 finals last year, and she's well on her way to getting into her 2nd final of this season already from 2 races. Now let's focus on this heat. Graf races for Switzerland, slowest of the qualifiers. In fact, she just scraped through qualifying by a couple of tenths of a second. Anna Svensson for Norway. 2 Norwegians go in this heat. Faller is the other. Sophie Caldwell, who won in Oberstdorf last year. What a moment that was for her. That was a classic sprint. I think she's slightly quicker at the classic sprints. Here's the woman to beat, Stina Nielsen, the winner from Ruka last weekend. And of course finished 3rd overall in the sprint standings last year. But she's got her nemesis next door to her, Maiken Kaspersen Faller, who was totally dominant last year. 8 wins in all if you include the stage races from the Tour de Ski. And Prochaskova for Slovakia, making up the numbers on the near side. Actually qualified okay, 3:24. Fastest qualifying time of the day was Sadie Björnsson of USA, 3:19.62. I would put my money on Björnsson not winning, although really impressed with her qualifying time. I think really she could have played a little more tactically.
That's interesting, her strategies, you're right. In Quebec City last year, she qualified 7th, finished 17th. She has qualified, the Quebec City qualified 1st, finished in 8th. So yes, she does get her strategies within this tighter pack racing a little mixed up at times. Hopefully she can put it right today.
So leading at the moment is Lorian van der Graaf, the slowest of the qualifiers. The reason for that, I think she's gambling that if she goes out front and sets the pace, others will respect that, and she'll be able to hold on. If she hangs around at the back, she won't be able to match the move of the stronger skiers. So good tactics from Lorian van der Graaf. The only problem is there are 4 tracks, so the others can go by anywhere they want.
There's the best racing line, though, isn't there? Of course, the inside line on a left-hand bend as we're looking here, and it does make it difficult to pass people on this, athletes on this track.
Faller, who just outside the World Cup points in the 10-kilometre classic up in Ruka. She's wearing number 2, so Faller leading. The World Cup leader, Stina Nielsen, just behind her. Nielsen, who had a very good 10K, finished in 7th place, and she backed, of course, that was on the back of her sprint win. So a 1st and a 7th puts her ahead, only 10 points clear of one Marit Bjørgen.
Well, Do you know, I thought the first heat at 3 minutes 14.57, I thought that was extremely fast, although looking at the lineup here, I felt this was going to be a faster quarter-final. At the moment, it's about 1.5 seconds slower.
Yeah, Sophie Caldwell's going to need to turn it up. She's wearing 10 in the American colours. Fowler looking confident, and Nielsen matching every move that Fowler makes. Now Nielsen goes to the side, looking for slightly quicker snow, but it's Fowler leading, Nielsen in second. Third position is Anna Svensson, another of the Norwegians in this group. We haven't mentioned Procházková of Slovakia, Mike, number 16.
Yeah, very strong sprinter. Now the pace is really now faster than the previous quarter-final, and the two big names up the front.
Well, we'll try and get a split time at the top of the climb. Fowler certainly going into overdrive, and she's on 2:31 at the top of the final climb.
That was a significant turn of pace. They were hovering around second, third, fourth position prior to that huge climb, and it's a huge rise. Now it's the tactical section into the stadium.
3:14.57, the winning time from the first heat. It's going to be close.
Well, Stina Nielsen's got I know there's a slipstreaming effect, but a nice glide on her skis under her feet.
Well,
she's
Nielsen
ski
has
pole.
broken a ski pole in the worst possible area. Now, if she qualifies, that would be miraculous. And that's going to be the yellow bib going if she doesn't qualify here today. 3:14, the time of the first heat has gone, and that has cost Stina Nielsen. She'll be absolutely livid with that. That's unlucky. Very, very unlucky. We'll no doubt get a replay. 3:15, so a second slower than the first heat. Good news for the lucky losers. Hjeitnes survives as a lucky loser. I think Ragnhild Haga may just survive as well. She had 3:15.63, somewhere around that. But Fowler stayed out of trouble. She worked hard though, Mike. But going in the first heat, she's going to have more rest than anyone else.
Huge recovery now, and she only had to work in the last quarter of that particular quarter-final. And as you see, 3:15.87, about a second slower than the first quarter-final.
Yeah. 250 quid's worth of pole down the drain. Lillehammer hosting the second weekend of the cross-country World Cup season, and we've got beautiful conditions here. I know there are snow problems over in the United States for the Alpine World Cups. No such issues here, and the home of Norwegian skiing has turned up trumps. Blue skies, cold conditions, the snow's in perfect condition, waiting for the start of heat number 3. Østberg wearing 8. Ingmar's daughter is in there as well, both talented sprinters. Scardoni, Ida, Mononen, who looks to be someone who's stepped it up a level this year, along with Krista Palmakoski. So the Finns are no doubt on the drive to perform at the World Championships in Lahti.
They certainly looked very convincing at the first World Cup. Maybe this week not quite as convincing. That home advantage did work for them last week. But we saw Palmakoski setting so far the fastest time.
Now, Mike, some of the athletes from this who qualify for the semis will go into semi-final number 1, and some will go into semi-final number 2. You want to win this and go into semi-final number 1.
You do, it just buys you an extra 15, 18 minutes of recovery time, and that's huge gift compared to someone who does the latter one and do not get as much recovery. And very few over the years have gone on to win from this first group. Petter Northug has, some of the big names have, but it's certainly not an advantage to go later.
Petter Northug is racing today. He's going late on. Marit Bjørgens in group number 5 in the quarterfinals. So if she can win this, that would be astonishing. Not quite sure what the thinking was behind selecting group 5. She qualified in 7th, so she could have gone further up the field. But Norway have got 10 athletes in this knockout phase, Mike. The coaches certainly wouldn't have wanted more than 2 in each heat.
Yes, that seems to be the thinking. Of course, the athletes have some choice in that, but the coaches will be wanting to maximise the potential for Norway getting the top 3 places on the podium, which is not impossible.
Steady pace being set by Østberg, who finished 7th, just missed out on a place in the finals in Ruka. She'll want to put that right. She qualified for every single final last year. She had 7 podium finishes in the sprint events, no wins. She was unlucky, denied time and time again by Maiken Caspersen-Thaler. It's probably worse to be beaten by one of your own teammates.
Østberg, not as convincing last week, but certainly looking more convincing this week. For me, she's one of the favourites to take the overall world title this season.
So Østberg ahead of Ingmarsdottir. Number 15 is Mari Eide of Norway, another of the club skiers who's done well in the qualifying to get through to the top 30. And there are so many Norwegians trying to get on the national team. It's pretty tough. And that's one of the reasons Norwegians are always in good shape at this time of year.
The rest of the world, it must be a little depressing. 15 Norwegians in the qualifying earlier and 10 of them making the top 30.
The last heat went under the banner at 2:58. Will Østberg be up there? Well, pretty much exactly the same. So we're looking for a time of around 3:15. And from their current pace, I think only the 2 leaders are going to go through. It's going to have to be a really strong finish by Eide if she's going to qualify as one of the lucky losers. 3:15, 3:16. It's even slower than heat number 2. Østberg and Ingmarsdottir go through. Eide will have to wait and see. Skardoni, I think, at 3:19 is out of it. And Feinrich also goes out in the knockout stages, but she has got World Cup points. And for those athletes who haven't had many in the past, getting through to this stage is an achievement. Østberg looks good.
Østberg certainly does. With this heat being quite fast, or at least the top 3, it's looking less likely that Stina Nielsen, the yellow bib wearer, will go through to the semi-final because of that broken ski pole she had.
Cutting the corner or looking for softer snow to grip?
I think looking for more grip. Taking it wide there, it's certainly not an advantage. It's easier to slide in the track than it is out of the track.
So no lucky losers from heat number 3, and that means that Østberg and Ingmarsdottir, the 2 fastest qualifiers, are safely through to the semi-finals as we wait for the start of heat number 4. Kerttu Niskanen. Well, the Niskanens are skiing pretty well this year. Belarukova, new name for Russia, and she's looked good. Got through to the final, didn't manage to stay with the pace in the final in Ruka, but she made it through to the last 6, so picking up good World Cup points. Number 12, that's Harsem of Norway. Only one Norwegian, incidentally, in this 4th heat. Fastest of the qualifiers, Sævi Bjørnsen. Are we going to see another American win? Jessie Diggins, always full of life, and she is a real scrapper, Diggins. Great to watch her out on the tracks, and nice to see 2 Americans in the same heat. I wonder whether we'll see any teamwork between them. So we've got Sandra Ringwald of Germany, 10th in the Sprint World Cup standings last year. Jessie Diggins finished 8th. This actually, although we got Sadie Bjørnsen the fastest qualifier, I think if you were to choose a group, having seen where everyone else had gone, Mike, you might have gone for 3 or 4.
I think that it's interesting that Sadie had the first choice of her group selection. I'm a little surprised she didn't go for 1 and 2. She's obviously thought, well, the big names or the big rivals will go there. I'll take it comfortable in group 4.
Yeah, maybe she said, OK, my aim is to make the semi-finals. So it shows a slight lack of confidence in her speed, but making it through to the semis, giving yourself a chance of getting through to the last 6.
Well, I think if you can get through without over-fighting, over-committing in these quarterfinals, without a doubt, historically we've seen you've got more in your legs for later on as you get to the semi and then the final. This is a burning pace at the front, and the 2 Americans not going with it, not able to go with it. I thought they might lead from the front, the 2 Americans.
It's Catherine Rolstad-Harstem who has gone for gold early on. She's really pushing it. I think she's working on the theory that if I can produce a stunning time, I might get through as a lucky loser. I think she'll be expecting some of the bigger names to come through. But Mike, the fastest qualifying time, 3:19.62. The fastest time we had in the first heat, 3:14. That's a massive difference. What does that tell you?
Huge difference. I know the temperature has raised up a little, and of course there's been a lot more traffic on the track since the women went out first early this morning, so the track is gliding a little faster. I wouldn't have thought 5 seconds faster though.
Ringveld at the back of the group for Germany at the moment. She made the majority of the knockout phases. Only one event where she didn't last year out of 12. Only made one final though, and it doesn't look as though she's going to make the semi-finals here. The pace is quick at the front. Belarukova, an up-and-coming star. Keep your eye on her. She's having a stunning run so far.
Well, this is a brave attack at the front from Harsum. By my calculation, she's about a second and a half faster than the fastest heat so far.
Well, the time we got on the top of this climb for group number 2 was 2 minutes 31, and then we're looking at a time, she needs to be around 2:56 going under that final banner if she's going to stand a chance. Now we see a move from Sadie Bjørnsen, who's been waiting, but certainly accelerating.
Harsum suffering now. You can see the rest of the pack closing in on her. I know she's got a good glide on her skis, so she might survive this on the fast descent.
2:27, 2:31 was the time we were after, and I think she's marginally inside. She might be 2:57 going under the banner, but the rest are closing. Harsum's still leading, a bold attempt, and I'm sure it's all about getting that lucky loser spot should 2 come through. But the only one staying with her at the moment is Belarukova of Russia, who's closing as they come into the final turn. It's a left-hand turn, then they go under the banner, then they've got 100 meters to go. Harsum looks over the shoulder, but she chooses the wrong shoulder. I'm not sure she will have seen Belarukova, who's come up on her right-hand side very, very quick. The slipstream again, Mike, proving crucial, but Harsum is still in a qualifying position. Sadie Bjørnsen giving it everything to come up on the Norwegian. Breaks to the left. She's running out of space, and she goes into third. In fact, it's Diggins, not Bjørnsen, who's come into third. The Americans leaving their charge too late. Harsum called their bluff, and it paid off.
Well, I've got to hand it to Harsum. That was a very brave attack from the gun. She'll be suffering now.
Yeah, she needs to fill those lungs with oxygen. She was on her last legs there. If she makes it through to the final, I'm not sure she's going to have anything to give. But Sadie Bjørnsen, disappointing, having produced the fastest qualifying time. But we did suggest, Mike, that tactically it probably wasn't a good move.
Probably wasn't, and I'm surprised that the pack didn't go earlier with Harsum. Clearly she set out her stall. You really want to try and stay with the fastest. If they go early, you have to try and control them.
Winding the clock back a bit, when you were doing sort of 2, 3, 4 minute intervals, which of the intervals, say you were doing 5 intervals of 3 minutes, which did you find the easiest, which did you find the hardest?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you'd always feel better between, say, sprint number 3, if you went up to, say, 10 sprints even, to 6, 3 to 6, and then you began to taper off. The first couple, you couldn't quite get your maximum feeling.
So Belarukova, certainly the star of that 4th heat. She looks good. 1 quarter-final to go. Gaia Vurik for Italy. Only 2 Italians making it through to the last 30. Scardoni was the other one. Jenny Oiberg of Sweden. Looked good last weekend, certainly in decent form. Justina Kowalczyk, we've seen her in better form. She was strong initially and then faded away, and she's next door to her great rival, Marit Bjørgen. Already got a win under her belt this season. How many more will she claim? Heidi Weng will hope to deny her, but history tells us that if Weng is on the podium, she's usually below Johaug or Bjørgen. Nepreva, what do you think of her, Mike?
Well, she's certainly a talent. She was somewhat 11 seconds off the fastest time, so unlikely, I think, bib number 28, unlikely to go through, especially in this heat.
Yeah, only one of this heat qualifying in under 3 minutes 20, and bear in mind that the fastest time so far is 3:14.
Which means, Patrick, that means that the 2 lucky losers so far are coming from Group 1, and I think that's Geitnes and...
Yeah, Geitnes is certainly there. It was Ragnhild Haga, 2 Norwegians, still waiting. They'll be hoping that Bjørgen keeps the pace slow along with Heidi Weng. Those 2 likely to dictate.
And that's where the coaches do inform Groups 4 and 5, and that's why I think we saw Harsum going so fast fast. She knew she had to set a good time to get through, and I think that'll be the same in this group. They will try their hardest to keep a fast time here. And
here's someone else. It's Justina Kowalczyk, the train on the far side. And so Marit Bjørgen's been away for a while, but she's already back in familiar territory. Interesting to see Bjørgen tucking in behind Heidi Weng. 3 and 7, those two. 28 at the back is Napraeva. The Italian Vurik still there, in with a shout, wearing 29. But it's Justina Kowalczyk who sets the pace.
Well, she went the long way around, Patrick. She was out in lane 3 on a left-hand bend, and that was extra distance, but she's won. She's achieved what she set out to do, and that was to get to the front.
The good news for Kowalczyk, who of course is from Poland, is that the snow conditions are good, the downhills are easy. She shouldn't have problems on that front.
Yes, and this track, more than most sprint courses, suits her so well. It's a grafter's course, it's a hard worker's course. As you say, those technical elements, not so much in this track.
Yeah, it's quite a long finish. Again, Mike, bearing in mind that it's very seldom the leader into the final corner, well, the leader down the final downhill very seldom wins. It hasn't happened so far. We'll see whether anyone can get far enough clear. Little unsteady on her feet was Heidi Weng. Bjørgen's gone to the right-hand side. It's the outside for the climb, but it does mean that the second half of the climb, you're on the inside of the turn, closest to the softer snow, should you need it.
Very much. Unfortunately for Kowalczyk, leading into that fast left-hander, 3-4 athletes behind her gained a lot of ground on her, about half a second. But this is where Kowalczyk can brutally push herself.
Again, a reminder, 2:31, the quickest split at the top of the climb, and it's Kowalczyk who ups the pace. Number 7, Marit Bjørgen, looking good, just nips in alongside, needs to avoid a contact. We've seen one broken pole from the World Cup leader already. That has cost Stina Nielsen a place in the semi-finals, and valuable points going missing. Hjeitnes and Haga confirmed as the lucky losers. Their times, 3:15.49. I'm afraid I missed the split at the top of the climb. I hope some of you picked it up. The next one is 2:58 under the big banner coming into the finish. Now, Kowalczyk leads down the final hill. Oh. Will she win? No, surely not, because the others get that extra little speed as they come into the home straight. 2:59, it's no quicker than the last couple of heats. And again, 2 Norwegians pull clear. Bjørgen looks good. Weng looks fantastic on the far side. And now Kowalczyk is hanging on in there. She's not going to make the semi-finals. How about that? No power in the double pole. She looked great on the climb. She always has done, but really weak in that final 100 metres.
Is it her skis? Was it the line into that final left-hander? Was it the slipstreaming? But the Norwegian girls just left her standing in that home straight, or entering the home straight. I'm so pleased, though, to see Kowalczyk back on good physical form. Just some of those little technical sections tripping her up.
We could well see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Norway today. It wouldn't be the first time in the women's racing, but they look as good as ever, as dominant as ever. And that, of course, is without Therese Johaug, who is not quite sure how long her ban is as yet. That's still to be decided.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 2 months, so should be back soon.
3:15.15. Welcome back to Lillehammer. The first heat of the men's are ready to go. And what have we got? 2 Norwegians, 2 Swedes, a Russian with Ustiagov, and we've got Rastelli of Italy as well. As we just go along the line, 28th fastest in qualifying. The bib number, incidentally, gives you their position in qualifying, unless you're wearing the yellow bib, which means you are the World Cup leader. Number 4 fastest in this heat, Theodor Pedersen. I hope when he first came on the scene, Mike, he had a really good sprint season. I'm hoping we see the same again. He's tall and very, very efficient with the skis. There he is, starts well, and settles down very quickly as well, Pedersen.
He was quite convincing last weekend up in Finland. And that long reach that he has when it comes to reaching for the line, he's got the slight advantage at 1.97 m.
Yeah, 4th in last weekend's sprint event, behind Goldberg, Halvorsen, Kleibo. So it went Norway, Sweden, Norway, Sweden. And the best of the Russians was Panzinski, who's not qualified today.
It's good to see Ustiagov back. He wasn't up in Ruka, or not performing well, and now he's back to. I love the way he races. He only knows one gear, and that is push as hard as he possibly can. Doesn't always get his tactics right, but he fights to the end.
I know that sort of racing appeals to you, Mike, but that does not win sprint races. Sprinting is so tactical nowadays.
Of course it is, but he's got the brutal mentality where he'll try and dictate it. If sometimes it doesn't work, he's there to fight for the line every time. The Norwegian 28 at the back there, Ninget.
It's incredible the change, the way the athletes have changed shape over the last 15 years, the size of the arms, the musculature. They're spending much more time in the gym than they ever used to do. You must be in touch with Scott, who's obviously racing biathlon, but how much time is he spending in the gym compared to yourself when you were training?
Yes, I would certainly do 2 sessions in the gym per week, from May onwards, really. But yes, he's doing 3, sometimes 4 specific sessions in the gym.
And more importantly, perhaps, the training in the gym has changed.
It has. A lot of heavy weights. You have to put the muscle on. You have to be able to create the forces, the power especially. And I think in the cross-country side, even more so when it comes to sprinting, you need muscle, you need power.
Yeah,
power output.
You've got to be able to generate the power in a very short space of time. You can have 2 athletes equally strong, but it's the guy who can generate the force quickest who is winning in this game, and that's something we've definitely seen over the last 5 years.
Oh, well, that's right. And what is it, 16, 17 years since sprinting came into the programme? Of 2001 at the World Championships in Latvia, really it all started. And you're right, the shape of sprinters has absolutely changed, and specific sprinters now, especially in the men's field. Ustigov is surviving, Patrick. His wax isn't that great, and I think that's why he's running on the outside in the soft snow.
Well, let's try and get a split round that bollard in 2:47. That will be a useful one for later on.
Can his skis maintain that lead for him? He's got a good gap, so the drafting, the wind advantage behind isn't really at play at the moment. 3:28 was the fastest time earlier in the qualifying.
Under the banner at 3:16, so that should be able to give us a fairly good indication as to where the lucky losers are going to come from as we see them coming down. Ustiagov still holding his own here, but Sweden starting to look strong with Pedersen on the far side. Pedersen's fairly confident he's going through. Bransdal no threat, a good half second behind. So Ustiagov of Russia is through, Pedersen is through, and the Norwegians on this occasion found wanting, with both Bransdal and Ninjet off the pace and out of the 2 automatic qualifiers. The time, Mike, 3:30.82, still some 4 seconds quicker than most in qualifying, but not as fast as we saw from Kalle Halvorsen.
Halvorsen, yeah, 3:28.44. Halvorsen earlier today, and of course he's coming up next in the second heat.
Yeah, the second heat's stacked, absolutely stacked. Halvorsen, Kleibo, Jonsson.
Yeah, it's a good heat. Those times, Bransdal and Inget, as you said, disappointed.
Marcus Hellner did his share at the front, but was blown away in the closing stages. Be interesting to see what we get from Marcus Hellner this year, who's been Sweden's #1 over the years. Erik Bjornsson racing. Sadie didn't make it through, so hopefully he'll be able to put that right. Emil Jonsson goes in his prime, an unbelievable sprinter. We'll see what we get today. Not sure the course suits him quite as much. Kleibo, the up-and-coming star of the Norwegian team, he wants revenge, having been beaten in Ruka last weekend. He finished 3rd. Kalle Halvorsen, he was fantastic. He was 2nd, so we've got 2 of the podium finishes from Ruka. Estonia's Marko Kilp, and then on the right-hand side, that's Alexander Besmetnik of Russia, and he will have seen Ustiagov in action, and I think he may be confident. Traditionally, the Russians better at the classic sprint?
I think they have been. Of course, Ustiagov, we've seen him win in freestyle and classic, but overall, they appear to be better in the classic.
Now, we could see some fireworks here. They're looking for a time sub 3:30. If it goes 3:28, we may well get the lucky losers out of this group.
I think the youthful enthusiasm of Klæbo, of course, he set the second fastest time. It's not a difficult prediction. I just feel that he's going to give it all the energy throughout this one.
Kalle Halvorsen, the overall World Cup leader.
Halvorsen at the back, for me, he's such a calm, relaxed athlete. His mentality is great. He doesn't get in the early fight. He knows that as long as he stays with it, he can punch it up later. Let the hard work be done by the youthful ones at the front.
Yeah, Jonsson already looks tense in the shoulders. I know he's a well-built man, but he doesn't seem to flow like Halvorsen does. And Halvorsen, he's a long way back. He's taking his chances here. What is it, 4 or 5 meters between the front and the back? We'll see when he makes his move, because surely it will come. Besmertnik leading for the Russians on the inside, wearing 10.
And Erik Björnsson at the back there, Patrick, of course, his sister setting the fastest qualifying time, but sadly not going through. In the women's field,
Erik Björnsson, on the other hand, was the slowest time in qualifying to make it through to the knockout phases. So one up for Sadie. But should Erik get through to the semi-finals, I can't see it happening, but should he do it, that would be a turn up for the books, as Besmertnik leads down under the bridge, and we're looking for a time of around 2:30 to start the big climb.
A couple of big names, Patrick, earlier who didn't get through. Muzzy, well, with this being classic, Andrew Musgrave maybe not expected to make it through to the top 30, finished 57th, nearly 18 seconds behind. And Dario Colonia still hasn't quite found his sprint pace yet. He was 14 seconds behind in 43rd position. Only the top 30 getting through.
Kalle Halvorsen has moved up into 3rd, having sat at the back early on, and he's done it with very little effort at all. He's got a good pair of skis on, I have no doubt about it. Watch him, he'll probably stand reasonably tall on the downhills, just to make sure that he doesn't go onto the back of the skis of the man in front. Besmertnik going well, still leading. He's been leading all the way round the left-hand bend, which signifies the start of the final climb, and it's a very long climb indeed.
Well, Johannes Klæbo, he really turned the pace up there, just pressed a couple of his, 10 turbos. He's got a lot of pace change ability.
I've got them on a schedule for a 3:32 finish at the moment. Unless they can turn it around, we're not going to see any lucky losers from this group. And Besmertnik, who led for the first 2 minutes, has been blown away with a change of pace from Kalle Halvorsen, and Johannes Klæbo has gone with him. The two who battled it out in Ruka a week ago are going head-to-head again here. How
does Halvorsen get those huge long limbs going so fast? That was incredible tempo at the top. That's bad news for the rest of the field, the amount of pace change there from Halvorsen.
I think Klæbo's playing it sensible, Mike. He doesn't need to beat Halvorsen, he just needs to finish in the top 2. So under the banner in 3:14, they're a good 2 seconds up. We could be looking at a 3:28 finishing time, but these two, they know what it's about. They'll take it easy. Well, doesn't make any difference where they finish across the line in virtually the same time. The next fastest 3:31, and Emil Jonsson might just go through as a lucky loser. We will see. 1:32 behind. So Besmertnik, having done all the work early on, is out. Erik Björnsson is out. Marko Kilp of Estonia is out. And the two best from, two of the 3 best from Ruka made it look very easy. And not getting involved in a sprint down the last 100 meters, Mike, reduces the amount of lactate in the muscle system after the race and increases their chances for the semi-final.
I think so, but they both put a lot of energy out on the final climb, but secured their win, their victory through to the next stage.
So Jonsson's hanging on. Two heats down, 3 to go in the first round of the knockout phases in this second Sprint World Cup of the season, and we've got some big names in this heat as well. Finn Hagen Krogh of Norway, he's wearing 7, fastest qualifier from this heat, and Federico Pellegrino, the world #1 sprinter from last season. He was fantastic last year.
Made some tactical errors, didn't he, last weekend up in Finland, but I'm sure he'll have confidence back again this time.
Away they go. The numbers to watch out for. Certainly Kroh, who wears 7. Pellegrino is 12. Svensson of Sweden is number 11. He's a good sprinter. And then we've got Sondre Tovol Fosli of Norway is 17. Alex Harvey trying to do it for the North Americans. He's wearing 23 on the far side in the red colours. And then Maxim Vilikjanim. He's a racer you've enjoyed watching over the years.
Yes, I think he's a racer who he's always sort of nearly there, man. He's second, he's third. We saw that at the Olympic Games in Sochi with his second position in the 50 kilometre. But he can sprint, he can do the distance. We've seen him strong in 50 kilometres, and that's his big favourite for Lahti, the World Championships. He wants to medal there this season.
Harvey KO'd in the first round in Ruka. He wants to put that right. Well, he's going the long way round on that first corner. Mike, are you a fan of track changing to make sure you're on the inside of each turn? I mean, anyone who's done athletics knows just how much further you have to travel if you go on a lane outside just one further out.
It adds up. You want to take the straightest line, but I suppose in Harvey's case he had to go in the 4th lane there because he would have been traffic jammed. So he opted for the long way around to try and get some gain. It hasn't worked out. But I am in favour of taking the inside line if you can at all times.
You've either got to get out front and have a bit of clear snow or stick at the back and make up the ground that way. But it's interesting to see how some athletes do it all the time, others don't do it at all. Oskar Svensson of Sweden leading the way at the moment, but it's not quite as determined a lead as we saw from Alexander Besmertnik on the last heat. Alex Harvey on the right of your screen is there, number 12. That's Federico Pellegrino. You'd expect him to go through to the semis, but it's not going to be easy. Pellegrino 3:37 in qualifying. Kroh and Svensson were both over a second ahead of him.
But you look at the undulations on this course, Patrick, they haven't really had any rest now to 2 minutes 10. I think it's the fact you're not resting at all on this course, and when you are, you're coming down the hill at 65k an hour on a very sharp left-hander or right-hander, so you're not getting any major recoveries. This isn't such a fast one, maybe 35-40 k's, but you're working the muscles all the way around these bends. Well, and then you've got this to welcome you as the final part.
Yeah, the fastest heat so far went past those bollards at the bottom at 2:31, so they're a long way off this pace, and way slower than we saw from the second heat, which ended up clocking around 3:30 after an incredible burst from Halvorsen and Kleibo. At the moment, it's Svensson of Sweden who leads, wearing 11. Harvey in the middle lane at the moment, and number 12 is Pellegrino, who just edges ahead as they come to the start of the final downhill. I think Alex Harvey's in a great position here, provided he doesn't get boxed in on that final corner.
Once again, the Norwegians at the moment not in it, but have they a chance of getting back? I don't think so. They're in 5th and 6th, although in fact they'll have a good glide down this descent.
Well, they've got to be right up with it as they go round this final corner. Here we go, under the marker at 3:16. They're still a long way behind. Surely no lucky losers from this third heat. Only 2 going through then. At the moment, it's Svensson of Sweden who has one of those places. Harvey on the far side's coming strong. It's a good finish for him. And Fosli, is it Fosli coming through with a long reach?
Well,
it's Kroh who gets it, number 7. Kroh of Norway.
Turn of pace there from Kroh, from 6th all the way up into 2nd.
So a photo finish between Harvey and Kroh, and then Svensson, who led into that final turn, was blown away. Mike, they must have seen it often enough that you don't win if you lead down the final hill.
Unless you've got, like Halvorsen, unless you've got a very good lead, somewhat, a 1.5 seconds at the top of the
Pellegrino
final descent.
Was in front at the top of the final descent. He's finished 6th, and Svensson was leading at the bottom of the final hill. It's that last turn. You want to be sort of in second, travelling faster than everyone else.
Yeah, and those at the back, I've noticed they're putting a couple of extra skate steps in, if you like, before the final straight, picking up a little momentum.
So a slow heat for heat number 3, 3:34. Nice to see Alex Harvey in the semis. Now an asterisk opposite Harvey and Kroh's name. I think that's just to do with the photo finish. Let's hope so. As we see the lineup for heat number 4. Andrei Larkov is there wearing 24, slowest of the qualifiers. Miyazawa of Japan. The Japanese are starting to do better in the sprints. Here's the man who won last weekend, Paul Goldberg. Has he made the right decision choosing group number 4? Emil Iversen, stunning athlete, 9th in the sprint standings last year, Iversen. Sebastian Eisenlauer. Now, the Germans had a really bad day in the women's sprint. And Baptiste Gros of France, he was looking good initially last weekend. So exciting times. 4th in the World Cup standings, Baptiste Gros, at the end of last season. That's the sprint standings. So Goldberg, Iversen, Eisenlauer, Miyazawa of Japan, Baptiste Gros, and then Andrei Larkov of Russia, who's on the far side. A long, long wait between the set and the gun. No one actually going off too fast. And it's Eisenlauer of Germany who tries to take control. And what's he trying to do, Mike? Just make sure he's in a good position for the first corner?
Well, I think so, but as you said, it doesn't, like Oscar Svensson last time, leading a lot of the race, it doesn't always calculate that if you're at the front early, you'll be at the front at the end. Paul Goldberg, though, Patrick, I think he has to be feeling good about this. 2 years ago, when the sprints came here, the same track, actually, he won on that occasion. He won last weekend, so he must be feeling pretty good about his situation today. I didn't think Goldberg, I didn't think he'd go to the front early on because of his incredible finish pace. He'll leave it probably to the final climb.
Do you think this is a tougher course than last weekend?
I do. I think this is the toughest sprint course on the calendar. I was just thinking earlier, is there a more difficult, more testing course? I don't think there is, especially for the Classic.
1,600 metres the distance, the women's just a little bit shorter. An extra climb on the course for the men. And so far the fastest time is 3 minutes 30. Both heats 1 and 2 producing similar times. We should get another look at the lucky losers' times that they're after. Pace looks relatively pedestrian at the moment.
Very much so. Iversen, I think he must be looking at the season and thinking, well, he will have a strong chance of taking the overall title. His sprinting is good. We know his distance racing is good.
Goldberg, 2nd in the overall World Cup standings, behind, of course, Kalle Halvorsen. Emil Iversen leading the way down the climb. This is perhaps the only part of the course where there's any recovery. It's a gentle downhill, and then they need to corner well as they start the final climb.
Just notice, Patrick, I didn't mention skating steps into the home straight. I said the tail-enders are getting a good skating stride. Now, I noticed that Fossley has been disqualified for the rule violation of skating too far into that home straight. It is an advantage, and he's been disqualified for that.
Well, that won't make the big man happy as we watch Goldberg lead the way. I think that's Iversen going with him. It is so 2 Norwegians again, 1 and 2, and they've opened up a decent gap over the top of the climb, 2:47. So they're pretty much there or thereabouts, but it's not going to be spectacularly fast. Lucky losers on 3:31. I think Jonsson and Brownsdahl are going to survive any challenge from this group in terms of lucky losers.
Well, I think this is a 3:35 lead time, so those behind have no chance of getting through as a lucky loser.
Now, this is the corner where Fossley was disqualified.
Now, I think a lot of that skating is rule violating. I know the jury are on the corner, they're videoing it.
Long before 1985, when skating was introduced, they would have used exactly the same technique to get round that corner in a classic race. I absolutely guarantee it.
I absolutely disagree.
3:33, right, we're going to have to dig out the videos from pre-1985 to find out how they cornered, and I'm pretty sure you might not have done, Mike. You might have stayed in the tracks for safety.
No, I agree. Step turn, of course, step turning has always been around, but these are skate strides. They're not step turning, they're actual skate drives. and a huge amount of power into that home straight.
Well, the skate turn was introduced before 1985, so I'm pretty sure it was still being used in the races, but we can argue long and hard about that this evening.
Norway, first and second, going through Goldberg and Iversen.
So Goldberg, Iversen and Groh, I'm afraid, missing out in terms of lucky losers. Well, a dominant performance by the Norwegians. Number 22 is Baptiste Groh of France. We didn't really see Larkov making his mark, and Miyazawa off the pace by the halfway stage.
Sorry, just a correction. Fosley, bib 17, he has got that rule violation for skating, but it's a yellow card, it's not a DQ.
Okay, so a threat, so he'll have to take care later on in proceedings, assuming he goes through. I thought it was Fosley, I thought it was Harvey and Kroh who went through from that third heat.
Yes, in fact, they've dropped him right down.
Yeah, so he's down in 6th position. RAL, it says. Hivarinen for Finland. This is the lineup for the final heat number 5. Potentially 4 places still waiting in the semi-finals, but it's going to have to be very quick. Len Valjas, can he find his way through? His teammate Harvey has already secured a place in the final. There's Niskanen, who won the sprint last weekend, not the sprint, he won the 15k classic up in Ruka. Martin Jonsrud-Sundby looking for some World Cup points. And Richard Juve, when I say Sundby's looking for World Cup points, he wants to gain points in the sprints to increase his chances of winning the overall. There's Petter Northug. What's he going to do?
The two great rivals, Sundby and Northug, in this final of the qualifiers.
You would expect them to go through. Northug, though, 3:39 in qualifying, Mike. He was 20th fastest. Either he paced it to perfection and has saved energy. It looks like Northug's going to settle in at the back. We've seen a few of the Norwegians doing that so far. They know this course better than anyone else.
Very much, and of course, another technique violation. Patrick, they are skating into that home straight. That's Finnhagen Krok again got that.
I'm not saying they're not
skating violation.
I'm not saying they're not doing a skate turn. It is definitely a skate turn. My argument is we've always done skate turns on corners of it was a step turn if it was really tight. If it's a gradual turn, which this one is, we've always used a skate turn.
I'm pleased the jury are picking up on it, because there is a huge advantage gain to be skating along into that home straight. Just the pace that you can pick up really lifts you off that descent.
Now, if Finnhagen Krok gets knocked out, then that could be very, very serious indeed, because remember, he has looked to produce one of the fast times. Alex Harvey was in his heat as well.
And Krok, remember, sorry Patrick, came from 6th position at the top of that hill to then qualify through in 2nd place, and there really was a lot of momentum off that descent. This is a slow pace on the final, the 5th quarter-final.
Well, if they're going to stop skate turns, Mike, they've got to dig the spores, the tracks a little bit deeper, and you've got to start banking the turns so you can just keep the skis in the track.
No, I think you just stick to the rules and don't skate. There is an element, of course, when you're taking a new direction, you're going to step turn.
I'm going to video you next time out, and you'll see that you are as guilty as anyone.
I trust the jury on this. This is a very slow pace.
Len Valjas leading the way, so looks as like we're only going to get 2 qualifiers again. Just starting to think whether the conditions are actually getting a little bit slower. There's Martin Jonsrud-Sundby. He doesn't want to risk missing out, but it's not quick. We'll get a good indication at around 2:31.
I thought Liivo Niskanen, I thought he might have that desire to take the lead early on, but is he totally confident in his change of pace up the final climb? He certainly looked brilliant in Ruka on that final climb.
Well, you've got Petter Northug in this group, who still hasn't done anything. He's controlled this one very well. He'll be confident of his sprint speed down the home straight, although he's not as good as he was in his prime when it comes to the last 500 metres.
This is where it's going to change. The pace has to pick up now.
Well, it really does, because they're looking at a time of around 3:34, maybe even slower than that. 2:39 past those bollards. The fastest heat was 2:31, so 8 seconds off the fastest heat so far. Sundby goes early. Now Northug tries to wind it up, but he's not making a huge amount of ground, stomping his way up the climb. He needs to get himself up into the top 3, and he may well just do that. Niskanen on the inside of the turn is still in a good position. Sundby changes track, Northug changes track. Have a look at the technique they use on the final corner. Under the marker in around 3:16, 3:17 would be fast, but I think they're way outside that. Over the last little rise.
Now this is where the violations have been taking place, getting them, they're just stepping at the moment, not getting huge gains.
They've been warned to watch out. Sundby leading, Niskanen goes for the drive in the home straight, seems to be doing well. Northug on the far side, the best double polar in the world. Look at the gains he makes in the last 50 metres. Northug's going through, Niskanen might get it, and Valius of Canada just missing out. But Sundby, the world #1 from last year, in a photo finish, but I don't think that's going to make any difference whatsoever. The winning time by Petter Northug, still waiting for confirmation to come up. He's safely through. Is that a good tactic, Mike? Put everything out in the last 150? Do you do more damage in terms of the next heat by racing like Northug did, or do you do more damage by pushing relatively hard all the way through?
I think you do more damage taking the pace all the way through. Northug was so, I think he saved so much of his energy except that ballistic final climb, so he only had 45 seconds at absolute max. And a strong finish from Northug. What happened to Sundby? He tried, he did everything right to the top of this climb, just didn't have the killer finish pace, Sundby.
Yeah, he actually needed to be on the inside line of that final climb, and then he would have had a gap. But Niskanen, who was, 5 metres behind just as they came to the crest of the hill, with being on the inside line, he gained that back without any trouble at all. So maybe a slight tactical error from Sundby. These are the sort of days you live for in Scandinavia. Blue skies, crisp, cold conditions, perfect snow cover. 3:34.52. Northug picked it up over the closing stages. They were 8 seconds down on the fastest heat at the halfway stage. Well, no time as yet. As soon as we hear the semi-finals, we'll update you for the men's, but we go straight on to the women's semi. And Finn Hagen Krok, incidentally, Mike.
Yes, he's been dropped down, so Oscar Svensson now goes through to the semi-final. Krok and Forsley in that same group have been dropped down to 5th and 6th.
Krista Palmakoski looked very, very good in her first heat, and of course producing a very respectable qualifying time as well. Osberg is going to be difficult to beat. She was best in heat number 3, so she's got a position in the first semi-final. How crucial is that going to be? Anna Svensson for Norway. So Svensson on the near side wearing 20. Number 8, that's Usberg next door to her. Palmakoski is there. Maiken Kaspersen Faller in this heat. Everyone keeping the skis moving. That's they don't want the snow to freeze on the base of the ski, Mike. And over on the far side, number 21, that's Ragnhild Haga. And next door to her from Sweden is Hanna Falk, wearing bib number 13. So we've got 4 Norwegians of 6 in this first semi-final. Let's just go through them again. Faller, Palmakoski, Usberg, Falk, Svensson and Haga.
And 4 Norwegians as well, Patrick, in heat 2. So 8 out of 10 in the semi-final, wearing their Norwegian suit.
And it's the lone Swede leading at the moment. Hannes Falk, the only other non-Norwegian is, of course, Krista Palmakoski. Again, Ingvild Østberg goes off hard. Missed out on the final last week. She does not want that to happen again. Is she going to try and break the field early on? Oh, she's got very slippy skis, Mike. That doesn't bode well for the final climb.
A number of them seems to, I know the track is becoming a little more iced over as so many athletes are skiing around it, so a number of the athletes looking like they're slipping this time round.
And a lot of athletes coming out of the track on the inside of the turn. It's a bit like running in the dark. You feel you're going faster than you are. Sometimes when you ski out of the track, actually you feel you're going faster than you are, simply because it's slightly rougher and you're a little more precarious in terms of balance.
Yeah, very much so, but I think certainly on the descents you're definitely faster today in the track as long as you can, and of course there are no tracks on the extreme apex of each of the curves. I've just heard, Patrick, you mentioned Johaug earlier. I've just heard that Norwegian anti-doping have said she'll be banned for 14 months.
14 months.
But they're expecting her to appeal that, so it has to go through that process. Roy Young just informing me of that.
Well, there's some useful information. When would that ban start? Will it take in the Olympics? Will it take in the start of the Olympic season? That would be absolutely crucial.
Well, a sample was found actually September, so a year and 2 months would take her into the start of next season. So I think she would be safe for the Olympics if they were to maintain that 14 months.
Well, let's focus on this race for a moment as we see Østberg still leading the way, but a slip means that she loses her advantage. And coming up strong is Hannah Falk, still looking good. Number 2, that's Maiken Caspersen Faller alongside Østberg. Faller, remember, the sprint champion from last year. So Norway 1 and 2. We've got Sweden's Hannah Falk in 3rd place at the moment. You'd certainly expect Faller to go through, Mike. She's got the 2nd fastest qualifying time, but she's a class act when it comes to sprinting.
And Hannah Falk behind her, the white ski suit of Sweden. She's coming back into this when if her finishing pace is good enough. Palmakoski, you're right, her wax wasn't good on the final climb.
Well, if they're disqualifying, I think they'll be having a look at Faller's last corner, because she certainly didn't hold rein in the skating step. Hannah Falk looking very good. She may well come through to win this one. She does. So Falk gets the win in 3:15.8. Østberg 3:15.9 is safe. And Maiken Caspersen Faller, the champion from last year, will have to wait and see whether she's done enough. Faller's time, Mike, half a second slower than the best, which puts her at what?
So that's, we're looking at around, what, 3:16.34.
3:16.34, 3:5. So the next heat will need to be quick.
Østberg, though, will be safely through, and that was quite a turn of pace, and I think a great strategy from Hannah Falk. She looked out of it with 50 meters to go to the top of the rise, final rise.
Well, that final corner is proving absolutely crucial. It's not technical, it's not a difficult corner, but it's about being able to carry speed round the corner and into the home straight. Falk, Østberg, Faller, Svensson, all through at the moment, but the times are very crucial. Now, there's been an adjustment on Faller's time, Mike. Instead of being half a second behind, the margin's been reduced. So, the second semi. Hjeitnes came through the first round as a lucky loser. Catherine Rolsted Harsham of Norway. We've got Heidi Weng of Norway. And a break on the Norwegians at the moment. Belarukova, she might be able to do something. She's outnumbered. But Norway also have Marit Bjørgen. Is she going to get her 2nd World Cup win of the season? She'll have to fight for it. Ida Ingmarsdottir looked good in the first round, and she'll certainly fancy her chances of finishing on the podium today. But you've got to get through this stage first. Top 2 plus the 2 lucky losers. And we're just revising our time. Really, you need to be under 3:16 to qualify as a lucky loser. They've got a few tenths extra, but
do you know, I'm just looking at leading there, Harsum from Norway. She set the fastest. She led out and set the fastest time in the early rounds, and she's doing much the same again this time. So I think this will be a fast semi-final, maybe faster than the previous one.
3:16 is not a desperately fast time. The first heat of the first round was done in 3:14, so they know it's there, but is fatigue starting to play a part?
Belrukova, she started slowly in the previous time out. She's keeping in with the pace at the front now, and we saw her real sting, her real turn of pace up the final climb was very competitive, the Russian.
Would you put Russian classic skiing in a mould of its own, or would you say it's closer to Scandinavian or the sort of Germanic style?
I think we used to see it almost in a technical class of its own, but I think they've modified, closing in on the Norwegian model, shorter, sharper jabs, or limb speed I should say, rather than the big long reachy glides we used to see.
Leaving herself with a lot to do is Marit Bjørgen at the back of the field, but she's wearing lucky number 7, so maybe she'll be able to find a way through in the closing stages, but her teammates do not want to give her the opportunity. They won't be showing her any respect at all out on the tracks. It's Harsum who leads. We've got Russia's Belorukova in second place. Third position at the moment, I think that's Heidi Weng, just ahead of Hjeitnes in the purple suit, and Marit Bjørgen still at the back. She's what? 20-30 metres behind as they start the final climb here in Lillehammer.
Well, Bjørgen's got a lot of work to do, but she'll take the positives. She won here 2 years ago when the World Cup sprints came here.
When does she move? The second stage of this hill?
I think she's too late.
I'm not sure she is, Mike. I think if she can stay within 10 metres, she might still be able to pull it back on the first downhill. Belorukova goes for bust as she comes towards the summit of the final climb. Has she got enough space to be able to stay away from the Norwegians who'll try and tuck in that slipstream? No, she hasn't. Good skiing from Heidi Weng, wearing 3. She's got herself into second position, and Bjørgen has gone from 6th to 5th. Is it enough?
Ingmar's daughter, she didn't have the wags to carry her momentum up the hill, so the Swede is out of this, I think.
3:16.07, the time to beat in terms of lucky losers, or 3:16.60 will be quick enough for the person in third position.
Bjørgen can now only hope that her incredible upper body strength, her double pulling power, can take her from 5th to 2nd.
At 3 minutes under the banner, I'm not sure they're quick enough for lucky losers, but we will see. 3:06, they got 10 seconds to cross the line. Belorukova is the person showing them how to ski. Heidi Weng putting in a last-minute drive. Nothing coming from Marit Bjørgen that suggests she's going to go through as a lucky loser. It's Weng who gets there by a toenail ahead of Belorukova. Harsum 3:17.8. It's not quick enough. The 2 lucky losers come from heat number 1. So Falla and Svensson go through, and that, Mike, means we have 4 Norwegians in the final, and we have 1 Russian and 1 Swede. Don't forget that Nielsen knocked out in the first round, having broken a pole on the final corner. That's a cruel blow for her.
Well, she looked so good. She was leading at that time and just snapped it, I think, herself, and she'll be gutted about that situation.
There's confirmation, 3:17.22. It's not quick. That's good news for Weng and Belorukova. That's where Belorukova nearly lost it, but she showed good strength in the final stages. Heidi Weng with a really quick start. Are we going to see Weng? I think we're going to see her get a few more wins this season.
I hope so. As you said earlier, she's always the nearly girl, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. In fact, 2 years ago, she was 3rd in this race in the final.
Yeah, an incredible number of podium finishes for Heidi Weng. In any other era, she would have been the world number 1.
I think so, yeah. 10 years, 12, 15 years ago. I'm just thinking, what about Bjørgen? She was 10th last weekend. She hasn't got the killer pace yet, and she'll be about 10th again today overall.
So the first semi for the men, and Alex Harvey delighted to have made it through. Can he take it a stage further? Kalle Halvarsson of Sweden He looked the danger man to me in the first phase. Looked very good alongside Johannes Husflot Kleibo. Theodor Pedersen. Oh, this is worthy of any final, Mike. And Ustiagov's in there as well. Astonishing semi-final. Don't be surprised if all the lucky losers come from semi-final number 1 again. We've got the current World Cup leader, Kalle Halvorsen. We've got Kleibo, who's the out-and-out star for Norway at the moment, and Kleibo gets a really quick start. Halvorsen didn't really bother, just settled back, and number 4 on the near side, that's Theodor Pedersen. Harvey is there. Nice to see a mix of nations as well, Mike. I know we got 2 Norwegians, 2 Swedes, Canada and Russia.
It's a good mix. You could actually view this as the final. Such good names. And I expected it to be fast from the gun. Again, I expected Kleibo to be really nailing the pace.
Yeah, looking at the second semi-final with names like Northug and Goldberg, that's much more likely to be a tactical race, but this is a snail's pace.
Surprising. Nobody really wants to take it on. They've looked at the previous ones. It's not always the advantage to lead it out fast. You will be absorbed if you're looking at how the history of this works. Halvorsen slipping there badly, and that's not the steepest of climbs. You need to have grip on a course like this where it's so steep.
If you're wondering what the blue bib indicates, you all know about the yellow bib, which indicates the overall World Cup leader. The red is the discipline World Cup leader. We'll see that in the next semi. The blue bib being worn by Kleibo is the under-23 World Cup leader.
That's right. He was only 20, and he's from his victory from his third place last weekend. He's managed to tally enough points to carry that blue bib. In the women's field, that honour goes to the Russian. Belarikova. This is quite pedestrian, Patrick.
Yeah, it's interesting. We will get a marker. They come back down towards the base of the final climb, and I've got a split time from the first round of 2:31. Maybe we should take it on the extra banner there on the left. We'll get a new time there, and that will give us an indication for the second semi. Through they go, 2:12. It's rough, but it's close enough to give us an idea of what the pace is in the second semi-final.
You just feel at the back there, Halvorsen has supreme confidence to be allowing himself once again to take comfort at the back. It's a lot of traffic to get through, but I think such is his form, he believes that he can get through the traffic. Harvey just getting cut up there.
Well, it's slow. It's slow, but now the pace starts to pick up, and Kalle Halvorsen on the far side in the yellow bit. That was a devastating turn of pace.
From 6th to 1st.
Yeah, he had that planned, and his wax worked to perfection on that climb. Now we have Sweden 1 and 2, Russia in 3rd. The 2 Norwegians struggling at the moment, but expect to see something from Kleibo coming into the final stages. That last corner, watch for the technique used as they come round the final bend into the home straight. Everyone will be a little bit nervous, having seen so many of the big names disqualified. Well, that's another one, Mike, that I think that was Brandsdal.
A lot of skating. I think the jury would view that as as a little bit too much.
Yeah, and I think Brandsdal's given up the chase, or is it? Well, that's very, very surprising. I'm not sure where Kleibo disappeared to. Was expecting a burst, but he has just cruised across the line. 3:34. Halvorsen, brilliant. Harvey, I think there was a little bit of obstruction there.
I think that was Halvorsen almost apologising to Harvey for cutting him up on the leading into the final climb. Surprised the Norwegians not at the races this time round. See how grippy his wax is, the length of wax. He's going to guarantee grip on that final climb.
So it looks to me like they've got a clister base with a little bit of hard wax over the top. There's quite a lot of glaze in the tracks. That would be sensible. 3:33.39. Remember, the fastest from the first round was 3:30. It is possible the conditions are getting just that little bit slower.
Well, Alex Harvey had to hold back a little to allow Halvorsen for this brilliant strategy.
Yeah, Halvorsen wanted to get across. He had to make that move if he wanted to stay on the inside. Now, Mike, with a 3:33, there is certainly an opportunity for maybe Niskanen or Emil Iversen, certainly Emil Jonsson, to qualify as a lucky loser. But if they go for broke in the semi, they may make it through into the last 6, so they're not going to have anything left to give.
That's the risk, isn't it? So you just feel this final of the semi-finals isn't going to be that fast.
And even at this stage, it's probably fair to say Sweden are favourite to get 2 of the top 3 today.
So far, so good. Yeah, nothing wrong. The strategies have been good, and they've got extra recovery time.
He can win over 15Ks. Can he win over 1.6? Unlikely, I feel. Emil Iversen. We saw him race in group number 1. Remember, he was top 10 in the sprints last year. Petter Northug, likely to be tactical. He'd stuck at the back in the first of the heats. He usually uses the same tactics for the first round and the semis, and then he changes it for the final to confuse everyone.
Iversen not wanting to get involved, or is that Northug?
That's Northug, yeah. Same as we saw from the first round, almost identical.
And I think they've had a chance to look at how this works. Looked at the 2 big Swedes, Halvorsen and Pedersen. They don't get involved in the fight until that final climb, the bottom of that final climb.
And actually, well, I would have said halfway up. If you go at the very bottom, you've got a good 40-second climb. If you go halfway up, you can survive a 20-second burst.
Very much, but you've got to be in the race. And Paul Goldberg, I think, is realising I want to be in the race, don't want to work too hard, so it's not that fast to begin with. Iversen just picking up the pace now, bib 13. Northug, how many years? 10, 11 years now we've seen that brilliant mind of his, how to win sprint races, but you need the body to follow up the brilliant mind, and I don't think he's quite as strong as we've seen him in the past yet.
Iversen leading. We've got last weekend's winner, Paul Goldberg, in 2nd place. There's just a little injection of pace from Petter Northug, staying on the inside, quite legal, provided he's going round those banners, and he has done. So Northug not wanting his teammates to get too far ahead. 3 Norwegians in the top 4. This time it's the 2 Swedes, Svensson and Jonsson, who sit at the back.
I think Halvorsen has been cautioned for obstructing, and that's when he cut up Alex Harvey.
Wow.
Oh, that's a pity.
The jury are having a good time today. They're earning their money.
They certainly are. They're watching everything.
I think you've got to be so careful, though, Mike, because this is fast and furious. It's easy to sit in a warm room with a TV screen and say, oh, that was breaking the rules. When you're out there, you know it's, everyone for themselves. It is.
But Alex Harvey, I think, we said that at the time, a little bit obstructed. He had to back off and he was chopped up, so I think that's a pity.
But if Halvorsen gets disqualified, Alex Harvey still doesn't make it through to the final unless they promote him to 2nd.
At the moment, I'm not sure that Halvorsen, he might just be yellow carded, but stay where he is. We'll have to wait and see. Yellow card, yeah.
Well, let's focus on the 2nd heat. The pace is good, just a fraction quicker than we saw from the first semi-final. So we should get a lucky loser from this heat. Whether we'll get 1 or 2, we'll have to wait and see. Goldberg pushing hard early. He's gone very early on the climb. Kalle Halvorsen waited till this stage before he went for it. Norway 1 and 2. We've got Niskanen of Finland in 3 at the moment. Petter Northug way off the pace. I think he might find it too much to make it back from there. He's down in 5th as his teammates crest the hill and head down into the stadium for the final stages. 3:34.03 is the time to beat if you want a lucky loser spot.
Well, I thought Jonsson in 4th place. I thought he might still have a chance. He's got a great final 200-meter pace, but a little far back at the moment.
Goldberg and Iversen are safe, surely, in 1 and 2.
Goldberg, he put in a few skate strides there into that final straight.
It's so difficult to tell, and it becomes farcical if they disqualify everyone. So, the rules just need to be clear. Goldberg, Iversen are through. 3:33. I think Jonsson's into the semi-final as well. Petter Northug misses out. 3:34. Not on prime form, Petter Northug.
Well, Goldberg really backing off towards the end, comfortably through. Iversen, again, a good job.
Has to be pointed out, Petter Northug was ill last week. That's why we didn't see him race the sprints or the 15K in Ruka. So it wasn't likely that we were going to see him on his best form.
No, he tried to press. You can see him at the back there, but he just hasn't quite got the form. As you say, any little illness, it sets you back. He's not sparking full volume yet.
Goldberg certainly is. He's looking good to defend his red bib as the Sprint World Cup leader. Someone else who was ill, Andrew Young from the British team. He's produced some great races, obviously, last year. Looked good pre-season, but just started to get ill in Beiderstolen and hasn't recovered. Only 2 races to go. Bear in mind that the second men's semi-final finished just over a minute and a half ago. The women are already on the line. Just looking at the margin between the start of the final and the end of the semi. Maiken, Kaspersen, Faller. Alongside her, the leader of the Under-23 World Cup, Bela Rukova. An exciting prospect for the Russians. Östberg, likely to go out hard, likely to keep the pace high. Heidi Weng, she's knocked out Norway's #1, Marit Bjørgen, and she finds herself sandwiched between her teammates at the start. Hanna Falk, the lone Swede in the final of the women's sprint event here in Lillehammer. Can she silence the Norwegians? Or will it be Anna Svensson who comes through and springs a surprise? 20th fastest in qualifying. She's made it through to the top 6. So, Falk, Faller, Svensson and Östberg all raced in the first semi-final. Bela Rukova and Heidi Weng are the 2 who didn't race in the first semi-final. So if they finish in the top 3, they've done brilliantly.
They have. Bela Rukova, she was held back a little bit there. She was trying to get out in front, but she couldn't quite get through the traffic. Maybe she'll pick up the pace to lead it fairly soon. That's never easy when you've got Kaspersen, Faller setting the pace.
Faller and Bela Rukova 1 and 2 at the moment. That's Östberg, looks slightly unsteady. Doesn't look as though she's getting brilliant grip on the skis, but that was the same in the semi-final. Number 3 is Heidi Weng. Number 20 is Anna Svensson. So Norway started the knockout phases with 10. They've managed to get 4 of those through to the last 6. Will it be a clean sweep? I think Hanna Falk might have something to say about that.
Well, I was just thinking that, but she's a slightly different strategy this time. She's staying with the pace. She was hung back a little further the previous time. Bela Rukova right at the back now. She looks like she hasn't the energy to cope with this pace.
Which semi-final? The second one. The second one, so really tough to produce the goods again. And maybe, Mike, it would be fairer if there was an extra 5 minutes in between. When we used to have the small final, there was longer in between the semis and the final.
Yes, it gave much more recovery time. At the moment, Bela Rukova out of it. She might just hope that she'll find something or that the pace can slow down. It's unlikely at the front.
I think it needs a pile-up for that to happen, so I can't see her coming through from there. Fowler leading. Last year's #1. Is she going to get her first win of this season and take the yellow bib, or the red bib, I should say, away from Nielsen, who won the sprint event in Ruka? Number 8 is Østberg. Moving up on the right-hand side of your screen is Heidi Weng. So Norway threatening to become 1, 2 and 3 as Hannah Falk of Sweden hangs on in there. She's in the right position and suddenly finds some good grip. Østberg, who we saw struggling for grip earlier on, really paying the price now. She's going backwards, but it's Fowler who's storming away. Heidi Weng goes with her. Weng is not out of this one yet. And remember, Heidi Weng had a brilliant double poling finish on the first heat, so she's obviously strong in that department. It could be Weng, it could be Fowler, and Hannah Falk might just spoil the Norwegian 1, 2, 3. I think she will. 200 metres to go. Fowler, the World Cup winner from 2016, leading Heidi Weng, who's been the promising athlete in the Norwegian team for so many years. And now Weng goes early. She breaks to the right, neck and neck between Fowler and Weng down the home straight. But it's Weng who's moving quicker on the far side, and the defending champion just can't respond. It's going to be another World Cup win for Heidi Weng. So deserved, so many podium finishes. This time she gets a win, and you can see what that means to her. Well done to Fowler. That's 2 second places, and Falk in 3rd.
Well done, Heidi Weng. We were just saying she's always the nearly there girl, and today she's the there girl. She's taken this victory, and that is sweet. She's so happy. Fowler will be disappointed. She hasn't quite started this season how she finished last season.
Well, she gives Østberg a bear hug. I don't think Østberg can quite. She's taken aback a little, but
nice one. And Østberg, I thought Østberg was going to really challenge there for the win, but her waxing, her skis let her down. She had no grip at all.
But she was underwaxed on the semi-final, Mike. To do it again in the final, maybe she went by choice, but that final climb is so tough. We saw Kalle Halvorsen. He had bags of snow under the skis, indicating a grippy wax, and I think we're going to see it. We'll see that again in the men's final.
And well done, Hannah Falk in white there, bib 13 from Sweden. I thought she might just have a little bit more killer pace over the top of the rise, but couldn't quite stay with the 2 fast Norwegians.
Well, Heidi Weng is going to rocket up the ranking. She moves on to 220 World Cup points. She'll go ahead of Parmakovsky. She'll go ahead of Marit Bjørgen. She'll go ahead of Stina Nielsen. My money is on Heidi Weng being in yellow for the next race. And that, of course, taking part here in Lillehammer. I say 100 points. Actually, it will change slightly because this is a mini tour. The mini tour that usually held in Ruka being held here in Lillehammer.
It is, yes. And tomorrow is for the women 5 kilometre free style. So a very short race again. And then, of course, Sunday, it's a 10 kilometre classic pursuit start.
Good job. All right, Heidi,
here's the race winner.
World Cup podiums for you, not so many wins. You get a win at home here, and you also get yourself into the World Cup overall leaders bib in yellow.
Yeah, that's amazing. And in sprint, I'm so happy. It was so cool to win a sprint classic race. So it's amazing.
2 third-place finishes to start the season last weekend, and now you're first heading into a 3-day tour.
Yeah, it's it's so cool and amazing to go so fast in sprint, and I can't believe it.
We could say you're speechless.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
She certainly is lost for words. One happy woman, and quite rightly so. That was it's been so many years that she's been number 2 or number 3 to Johaug and Bjørgen. Fowler had it at this stage, Mike, but Heidi Weng kept that margin to less than 10 metres over the top of the climb, and then another devastating double poling finish, which is something that we haven't seen from her in the past. So I suspect she's been doing a lot of strength training over the summer.
And look at the margin that gives her this season. It just gives her that little bit of hope when she's chasing for the line. I think that Fala, when she went far left lane, you just feel had Fala gone into the lane in which Heidi was in, it was a faster exit from the bend. She lost a little bit because she had a good lead. But she'll have a look at that. The coaches will talk to her about it. What could have been better? I think that could have been better.
And don't forget, she started the season really well last year, except for a navigational error that knocked her off the top spot. Goldberg, Iversen, Niskanen and Jonsson coming from semi-final 2. That is now confirmed. And we should mention again, Heidi Weng, second semi-final, goes and wins the final. That is so rare.
It's impressive. And we saw her struggling a little on the final climb, and then she just began to believe. She was detached by 10 metres. She dug deeper and managed to get the victory.
Emil Jonsson has gone for the wrong start position, and Lieven Niskanen just coming in to put him right. He's on the wrong side of the track. He wanted to be on the right-hand side. Well, look at that. Normally, it's Norway dominating. Today, we have 3 Swedes in the final. Are we going to see a turnaround in fortunes? You have to go all the way back to the, late 70s, early 80s, maybe the mid-80s, when Sweden were the dominant force. Norway have been #1 since then. Not since the days of Gundersvan and Eriksson and Vasberg. They were real skiers. Goldberg, really disappointed. You could see it on his face. He was obviously glad to be on the podium, but he wanted the win last week. He didn't get it. Kalle Halvorsen, likewise. He looked devastating in the early stages. Now, Mike, Halvorsen certainly tired on that final race in Ruka. I wonder if we're going to see the same. He's got 2 teammates to go with him. Pedersen. Any chance that the coach has said, look, Pedersen, Jonsson, you do the work. Shelter Kalle Halvorsen and let him go in the last 500.
Maybe. I think they will have talked through those potential possibilities, but you just feel the Norwegians are going to take this out fast. Paul, Goldberg, Iversen, I think they'll try and take the pace quite strong from the gun.
Well, I think giving Jonsson team orders, a bit like giving Hamilton team orders. They don't work.
The free spirits. There's a broken pole. Bad start there for Paul Goldberg.
Oh, no, that is absolutely devastating.
He needs somebody very quickly, but it's over.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Where are the coaches? There's often issues there when you start, when you leave that start gate. I would have expected a spare pole to at least be within 200 metres of the start.
Well, I must say I'm slightly mystified by that. Easily done. So we saw the winner of the women's first sprint going out with a broken pole. We saw the winner of the men's first sprint going out with a broken pole. That's unusual.
And Goldberg winning last week on great form. He must have really believed he could have taken this title today.
There is so much close quarter skiing in the sprint events, Mike. Would you have thought it was better to have a slightly different design, have a slightly heavier pole, but just reinforce the bottom 18 inches?
Yeah, I don't know about the manufacturers making a specific sprint pole, but I think you're right. Strengthen the lower part. I didn't see which part of the pole. It's most likely to be the bottom 10 centimetres.
Yeah, it's broken about a third of the way up.
Well, maybe there needs to be, because we do see many poles. And if you snap a pole in a final, well, as we saw with Paul Goldberg, it rips you. There's no coming back from that. It's very slow now, and I think Goldberg out of the mix has assisted the pedestrian pace of this final. Nobody really wanting to lead it.
Kalle Halvorsen with Emil Iversen alongside him. We've got Theodor Pedersen is there as well. Emil Jonsson just struggling a little. I'm not sure this is a course for his strengths, whether he can get back in contact, but he's, what, 10 metres off Niskanen, down in 5th place.
Well, you were there. Memories of the Olympic sprint final where Jonsson was left with nothing, but luckily for him, a big pile-up managed to secure a bronze medal for him in the Olympic sprints.
Well, Pedersen is one of 2 who came from the first of the semi-finals, and Kalle Halvorsen did as well, and those 2 are up in the leading 3, and the men have less time between the second semi and the final, simply because there's only 1 race in between rather than 2, and it certainly seems to have paid dividends. So Halvorsen will be glad that he went for group number 2 at the start of this race. He breaks to the right, this time no obstruction. He was given a yellow card after his semi-final, and he's got himself 5 metres over Iversen, but it's not enough on this course, because Iversen and number 4, Theodor Pedersen, should be back in contact by the time they go around that final left-hand bend.
And wouldn't the Swedes love to get a 1 and 2 here in Norway, in Lillehammer, in the heart of skiing in Norway? It's not impossible.
It's a good lead from Kalle Halvorsen. He takes it steady on that final corner. Now he goes into the double poling. Iversen's right behind him, likely to get sandwiched in there unless he can make good ground, because coming up on Iversen's right-hand side is Theodor Pedersen. It looks like it's going to be a win for Sweden. It will be. Iversen gets 2nd, Pedersen is 3. The Norwegians sandwiched in between 2 Swedes. They do not like that. Niskanen of Finland down in 4. Goldberg and Jonsson don't really feature. Jonsson just cruising across the line. He's going to be tough to beat this year, Mike.
Oh, looking so good. He's got an incredible turn of pace, and I like the way he backed off. He probably knew that Iversen was in the same lane, maybe just trying to allow Pedersen to come through, but it wasn't going to happen. What about Jonsson? Ran out of energy.
Good World Cup points for Niskanen down in 4th place, but he's going to lose ground to Kalle Halvorsen, who wins. So he's had a 3rd, a 2nd, a 7th and a 1st.
Ut til deg, Torbjørn, som har funnet noen som vant med dette å brekke staven. Ja, det helt riktig. Paul Goldberg, dessverre, klarer å få en røfsla.
Well, that concludes the action here in Lillehammer. Welcome back to Lillehammer. Slow motion pictures of the final stages of the final race of the men's sprint. It's the Swedish colours that are across the line first. Kalle Halvorsen gets his 2nd podium of the year. He looked brilliant in Bruksvallarna, where they did a couple of pre-season sprints. He won both those, absolutely slaughtered the rest of the Swedish team. So no surprise to see him doing well, but he's raced so sensibly. There's the start that put Paul Goldberg out of action. Mike, I don't think he's got anyone to blame but himself.
He did it himself. He'll be very disappointed, because 2 years ago he won here, and was on super good form.
And we're still not quite sure what happened to Klæbo. We were waiting for a lineup. We wanted Goldberg versus Halvorsen versus Klæbo. It hasn't happened. Plenty more sprinting to come this season. Unusual, I'd say unique, to start with 2 classic sprints. But they've both been very good races. There you see the final results, 3:31.83, so still not the fastest time for that men's final, but it was a lot quicker than the semi-final times. Iversen in 2nd, Pedersen 3rd, so 2 Swedes on the podium here, and they'll enjoy that. 1 or 2 Swedes have come across to support. It's not a great distance across, actually. I think a lot of the resorts in Norway are now owned by the Swedes, so there should be a few over here. Falla, 126 points. Mononen, promising start to her season for Finland. Kowalczyk down in 15th place already. Not the sort of start we were expecting from her. With a start like that, Mike, do you think she says, OK, let's focus on the Worlds?
I think she will. I think tomorrow, when it's 5 kilometre freestyle, not her strength either, the freestyle, but on Sunday, when it's a pursuit 10 kilometre classic, I think we'll see Kowalczyk making up some places.
Well, we're hoping to hear from Kalle Halvorsen and hear whether he's got a little more to say for himself than Heidi Weng, who was completely overcome. Here he is, the winner of today's sprint.
All right, Kalle, we saw you have a great start last weekend. You left Ruka with the yellow bib. You got your first win of the season here. The way you'd like.
Yeah, I cannot believe that I won the win today. So yeah, it cannot be better than this.
Cheat week.
Well, apologies for the
my tactic in the
problems here.
Semi was to go take it easy in the beginning and go for the last uphill, but in the final need to go already in the start. So yeah, so I have a good position in the last uphill.
Congratulations on your first of the season. We wish you well the rest of the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Well, that wasn't hugely successful either, but it was interesting to hear that the tactic in the semi-final was conservative. Mike, wait until he's halfway up that final climb. In the final, you generally have to go from the gun, which is what he did. And that's something that the good sprinters are able to change their tactics, not race to race, but every single round they change what they do.
Very much, and conserving energy for when you need it most at the end.
Well, standings in the Tour, obviously the same as the results from today. So Weng, Faller, Østberg are right up there in the 3-day Tour. Norway pretty dominant.
And Bjørgen has to pick 15.9 seconds back to take the lead tomorrow off her teammate Weng. Is that possible in tomorrow's 5 kilometre freestyle?
Only 32 seconds behind for the likes of Jakobsen and Monanen. And the women heading out to get their medals. We unfortunately don't have time to stay with you throughout that, but what a day's racing. It's going to be an exciting weekend, a 3-race tour here in Lillehammer. And of course, we've got lots of ski jumping and Nordic combined going on as well. Heidi Weng in the middle of your picture. Popular victory?
I think very popular. The Norwegians know their cross-country skiers so well, and realising that in the classic sprint competition, Heidi Weng, she's done well in the past, she's podiumed, but very rarely on top of the podium.
Hannah Falk is on the podium in the women's race. Good race from her. Falk was 9th in the World Cup standings before today. She'll go up certainly 4 places. The champ, Heidi Weng. And when you've had 50-odd podiums and only a couple of wins, every win must feel like your birthday. Celebrating with a little bit of non-alcoholic beer tonight, I think, Heidi Weng. But these mini tours, she's going to have to, as soon as she's off this podium, Mike, she's going to have to start thinking about preparation, maybe a massage, certainly get some fuel on board. An early night tonight once she's handed the skis over to the technician to do all the work.
Very much, and it's draining, isn't it, to be out here most of, well, what are we, local time, 1:45, been out here since 8 o'clock this morning. A lot of energy output today, mental energy as well as the physical energy. And you're right, massage, food, and a lot of rest this afternoon.
Well, I wonder who's going to win the women's overall this year. Will it be Bjørgen? Will it be Østberg? Will it be Weng? Will it be Kowalczyk? Lots of questions. We won't know the answers for months and months. But Heidi Weng has certainly put her name in the hat.
Yeah, very much so. And without Johaug kicking around, Bjørgen not sprinting so well at the moment, it's given Østberg, Weng, Faller. Faller doesn't deal well with the distance races. So I think Heidi Weng looking very good for the overall.
Well, that's all from Lillehammer for now. Thanks for your company. We'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.